Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 14 and see how this particular iPhone holds up in the later part of 2023. Now this iPhone has been out for over a year now. I've talked about this iPhone so much this year, and if there's any iPhone that I use as a secondary device, it's probably my iPhone 14. It's a very solid iPhone. I think it still holds up in a lot of different ways. And although, like I said, it wouldn't be the first iPhone I'd recommend buying, I still think it's a pretty decent device in a lot of different areas. If you want to pick it up, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, some big things that basically changed with this particular phone since my mid and early year review of this thing. For one, you are actually getting the successors of this phone now. So we now have that next hardware version of this phone, but we also have the next major software version of this phone as well. iOS 17 was the first version of major software update that this phone ended up getting because it get released with iOS 16. So those were some big things. The exterior of this phone still holds up very well, as you can probably assume. You still are getting that 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. It's a notch. This is one of the last iPhones to actually have a notch. So if you wanted to go down that direction from that main generation of iPhones beyond than just the SEs, this one does, it's probably going to be the last one with the notch, which is pretty insane. The lightning port at the bottom, also probably one of the last iPhones with a lightning port. So that's a pretty big deal right there too. And on the back of this phone, a standard glass back, dual camera setup as well. This is a pretty good feeling phone. It is kind of the same thing as the iPhone 12 as we've seen before, but I think it's a pretty solid sensor. It's a pretty good device, and I don't really have that much to complain about from that specific perspective. Internally though, Apple A15 Bionic chip, 6 gigabytes of RAM, very good performing chipset, and because of that, it's very similar to the iPhone 15s. When I compared my iPhone 14 to my iPhone 15, my iPhone 14 is holding up very well. Of course, the 15 has USB-C and Dynamic Island and a newer back. This thing still feels very good. It does not feel like a cheap phone at all, and I think overall Apple did a really good job with this particular phone, which I've talked about for several years now, or at least like a year and a half now when this phone came out. So I do think if you're in the market, from a hardware and even like a performance perspective, the iPhone 14 does a really, really good job from everything you're going to throw at it from that perspective. And when I compared it against my iPhone 15, even the outside of these iPhones are very similar. Of course, there's some differences, but I do think at their core, there's a lot of similarities there too. On top of that, within iOS 17, this was the first major version of software that we got in this particular phone. And what I'll tell you about the iPhone 14 on iOS 17 is that, in my opinion, this is a pretty good version of software for this type of device. Because the iPhone 14 is like the major iPhone on the version of software, this iPhone is going to be getting all the features that basically the iPhone 15 would have gotten on iOS 17. So you're really not missing out on anything. All the major features on iOS 17 you're getting on this thing. Now, I'm pretty sure I installed iOS 17 the first day it came out on the 14, but if not, I installed it pretty much the first week. And since then, it's been holding up pretty well. We're now on like 17.1 and the betas of 17.2, and usually the 14 Pro or my iPhone 14 are the ones I install these betas on. I install them on all the devices, but usually on these ones I start first. And even on those versions of software, like this phone is ripping through it. It holds up very well from that perspective as well, which is another very, very big asset. So I will tell you, in my opinion, the iPhone 14 is a very solid phone. It's only gotten better since even my first couple reviews of this thing, and I would still recommend buying it. But if you have all the money in the world, go for the 14 Pro or the 15s and the 15 Pro. But the iPhone 14 Pro, I think, is a pretty good upgrade coming from the iPhone 14. And I'd probably recommend going down that direction and buying that particular device over than buying something like the iPhone, 14 if you want to, but you can't really go wrong. The 14 is a very solid phone as well. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much. But definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.